Hello there, and welcome to the tour video for the 3 variations of the Wildebeest Military Truck, the third vehicle in my military utility, logistics or transport vehicles series. My name is Wimpo Man, and I am the Chief Designer, Chief Builder, Chief Architect and Chief Dumbass behind the Wildebeest Truck project. So, let's come out of that view. So here is the Wildebeest and its 2 variations. Now, I'm sure you can probably guess, but I'm including them all in one video because they're all so similar that I don't feel they deserve or warrant their each individual videos. I think they're similar enough that I can cover it all in one. Now, I am going to be talking about the first Wildebeest for the most part. And any stats I give you on this, if I don't specify that the stats for the other 2 are different, you can assume that either I've made a mistake or that they are the same between them. Hopefully I won't make any of those mistakes. They are, of course, different enough that I felt it was justified to have the 3 versions on the workshop, rather than giving instructions on how to convert one into the other. I thought that was... I mean, it's not difficult, but it's still a lengthy-ish process that I thought was better that I do rather than, you know, forcing other people to do. Rightio then. So, let's start this tour video off with their roles and task equipments. This is because there's more than one. So, the original is a 16,000 SU logistics truck. Now, to facilitate its task of a logistics truck, it has, as you can probably guess by the name, a 16K SU cargo container. So this variant here is a 12-person transport truck, and to facilitate the task of being a troop transport truck, it has seating for 12 persons, hence the name. And finally, I bet you can't guess what this one is. It's an ambulance variant, and to facilitate the task of being an ambulance, it has a clone chamber and a medic station and a pretend, well, a couple actually of pretend beds is probably the wrong word, but they're not quite stretchers either. We'll go with beds, but it doesn't quite apply. Right, that's the end of that segment. The next segment then is their propulsion handling and lift capacities. Right then, so for forward acceleration, they have 2 large tier 2 thrusters and 4 medium tier 2 thrusters. They have 6 medium tier 2 thrusters for braking and reverse, and 2 large and 2 medium tier 2 thrusters for their lateral thrusts. So they have 4 hover boosters for your jumping needs. They also have 4 large hover engines on by default, 1 in each corner. Now, with those 4 on, they will operate in over 6G. So, and that is dry weight, mind. It might change once you fill them with stuff. But yes, I think this one is ever so slightly over 6G. That one is something like 6 and a... Sorry, loud motorbike went past. So I think this one's about 6 and a third G, and then that one is ever so slightly over 7G with max lift off. So turning max lift on will turn on these 2 other large hover engines and the 4 small ones at the front on all of them. They're all the same. Now with max lift on, they will all lift around about 142.7 tons in 4G. Now, the logistics truck weighs 53.7 tons. The transport truck weighs 48.8 tons, and the ambulance weighs 45.8 tons. Again, that's dry weight. That will, of course, go up, especially with this one when you fill it full of stuff. Ooh. Sorry, just noticed that. Pause time. So, that's everything under there, isn't it? Yes. So, mobility, starting with their maneuverabilities, and they're all going to be the same because they all have the same thrusters. As far as I know, it doesn't take anything into account. 20-second forward. Oh, it does. Okay. So, the logistics truck then. There's 16 KSU logistics truck. Mobility, 27 meters per second squared acceleration forwards, 21 meters per second squared reverse, and 20 meters per second squared left and right. No, I will stick with one vehicle. Agility for the logistics truck, 32 meters, 32 degrees per second of yaw. As I always say, I don't find roll and pitch particularly important with HVs, but the roll is 27 and the pitch is 11. Moving on to the transport truck. Acceleration in forwards is 29. Reverse is 23, and sideways is 22. Yaw is 35. And the ambulance, forwards is 31. Reverse is 24, sideways is 23, yaw is 35. Right, I'm not going to do like I normally do, a little test drive to show you how they perform, because quite frankly, I can't be bothered to park them back up again nicely like this. So I'm not going to, you'll just have to imagine what they drive like. I mean, I'm sure most of you can probably tell based on the stats of other vehicles how these will handle based on their stats. Right, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment then is their propulsion. No, it's not. It's their power, fuel, and air. So, all the same, they all have 5 large generators. I will show you where all of these bits are when we actually get into the interior, but for now I'm just going to tell you about them. So 5 large generators. So fuel, they all have 9 large fuel tanks. And O2, this is where they do differ slightly. So they all have 4 O2 tanks, 1 ventilator and 1 O2 station in the cab. They all have that. Now, the rear compartment, the troop compartment of the transport truck is not compartmentalized. However, it does have an extra O2 station and 3 extra O2 tanks to help feed that, so that if you're carrying anyone in the back, they can have access to oxygen. You will need to pull over, of course, but at least it's there. Now the ambulance has the same, so the 4 normal O2 tanks, the ventilator and the O2 station in the cab, plus it has an additional ventilator and O2, the same O2 station actually as the truck, along with the same additional 3 O2 tanks, along with the additional ventilator. Right, that's the end of that segment then. So the next segment is their weapons, defenses, and construction. Plural. So, weapons. The logistics truck has 6 Gatling turrets, 3 facing rearwards and 3 facing forwards. As you can probably tell, there are 2 that are on. It's not a symmetrical vehicle, it's asymmetrical, and the one side on this has 2 turrets on one side and only 1 on the other. Now, they are set to target NPCs, players, and predators, and of course also drones, which I consider to be my anti-personnel setup. Now, other than the fact that the rear turrets have moved slightly, they're there and there rather than... So the transport truck has the same, and they're set to target the same. Now, the ambulance has a lot less. It only has 2 Gatling turrets. And, to be honest, the reason it still has 2 is because I didn't know what else I was going to put there. Yeah, that's really the only reason the ambulance is still armed. So, researching what military ambulances look like. Now, obviously, ambulances aren't armed, but that's because of our Geneva Convention here on Earth. 350 years' time, in the universe of Empyrion, I'm pretty sure the Geneva Convention won't apply to outer space when we come into contact with alien species. So I think it's perfectly plausible for ambulances to be armed in that situation. So I have left it armed. They're set to target the same. And also a little hint of what's to come, just in case, because this is going to be a couple of days away. While researching what military ambulances are like, this one that I'm showing you now is a truck, and as you can see, there are military ambulances that are trucks, so I thought it would be fine. But as you can also tell, there are quite a lot of military ambulances. I mean, there's one even that's basically an APC. But there are also quite a lot that are basically variants of either a Land Rover or a Jeep or a Humvee. Now, I have a Humvee-alike that I am, in fact, doing an ambulance with as well. In fact, it's already built. It's in orbit up there at the construction area. It's just, it won't be released quite yet because I'm doing this. So, oh, yeah, that's what I was about to say. So, even though this vehicle is based on these sorts of things, and these sorts of vehicles aren't going to be really... I mean, that APC one that I just discovered might be picking up casualties from an active battlefield, an actual hot zone. But the other ones probably won't, because they look reasonably soft-skinned. However, these are all armoured, and I will cover that in the... Is that the next bit? No, it is this bit, actually. I'm in the defences. So, you probably would find these picking people up off of an actual battlefield that's currently active, which is another reason why I'm okay with an ambulance being armed. So, defences. They have a shield. Oh, I forgot to mention the pentaxid tank in the fuel bit, because I consider it fuel. But they have a shield. They're also armoured. Now, they're not armoured like tanks. They're not completely covered in combat steel. So, most of the front is... hang on. Would that one tell me? So, that thin block there, by the way, is the hardened steel. That there is the actual body of the vehicle. So, most of the front and most of the cab is hardened steel. Not necessarily down the sides, but over the roof. And it's exactly the same on all of them, because basically I just turned that into that, and then that into that. So I didn't change the armor profile, really. As you can probably tell, there are other block shapes, and they're all hardened steel, this back bit. The bits around the turrets are combat steel. Oh, and there's a little bit, actually, here-ish. Where is it? Oh, along here. So, I'm sure you can hear what's under there and see it now that I've accidentally clipped into it. So, the generators are there. They are protected. Oh, I also want to mention, actually, that I did get out the debug rocket launcher. Yep, I got the debug rocket launcher. And I was shooting the front and the sides. I'm pretty sure that it won't chain react. So we'll see where the core is later on. But the core is right at the front. so that if it's destroyed, the rest of the vehicle should be okay. Now, the generators are here and the fuel tanks are in the back there, next to the shield generator, but there are blocks in between them, and I did try to get them to chain react, and they didn't, which I was hoping for. It's possible, though, because as you probably know, the dopey turrets will keep shooting something that's already destroyed before they figure out the thing I'm targeting is gone. It's possible that your generators might pop. Maybe incoming rockets would still be hitting the same place because they haven't switched targets yet. So it is possible the whole thing might go pop. But I have at least tried to stop that, despite it only being a truck. So construction then, the rest of it is hardened steel. There is a little... Oh, this is combat steel as well. Oh, I don't even need to go in, actually. So there is some fuel tanks on the outside. That's what these things are on the side, protecting some of the external fuel tanks. There is some on the inside as well. Yeah, most of the rest of it is hardened steel. Now, there is a small amount of steel, and I can't remember where exactly. It's decorative bits, I'm pretty sure. No, never mind. That is hardened steel. Okay, well, I'm sure there's a little bit. Is it down here? There's some down here yet. Steel blocks. This is steel. That's steel. So there we go. That's that segment. All right, the next segment then is their resource gathering, productions, and storages. Jizz. I'm not editing that out. That was funny. Right. So, resource gathering. They have none. None of them. Production. Still none. Storage. Right. Here's where it gets slightly complicated between... Only slightly, mind, between the variants. So, the 16,000 SU logistics truck has a 16,000 SU cargo container, hence the name. That's why it's in the name. It also has a small cargo box, a 1K SU ammo box for all the turrets, an armor locker, and an fridge. The transport truck has the same small cargo box, because it's in the cab, the same 1K ammo box, because it has the same turrets, has the same armor locker and the same fridge. However, the back part is taken up by the seats. Now, it does have some storage in the back. You can see the extensions and the controller there. Now, that is 2,875 SU. And then the ambulance is exactly the same as that, except that that 2,875 SU container there, one of the extensions has been removed to make way for the ventilator that we saw. So it's actually 125 less at 2,750. And it has 2 extra mini fridges for additional medicines. Right, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment then is their interior layouts and any remaining devices. Right then, before we go inside, I'm going to start with some of the remaining devices. 4 docking pads. The detector is just there. Obviously, again, it's the same in all the vehicles. Yeah, everything else is inside. Anything else to show you? No, I don't think so. I'll cover everything else as I get to it. Now, as I'm sure you can tell, there's no ramp getting to the cab. I tried. Now, I did play with the idea of making the cab 1 block longer so that this sort of wheel arch arrangement, this slope was actually here, which would have given, obviously, space for the ramp to come down off of these blocks. It looked a bit too long, the vehicle. So you're going to have to make do with jumpy uppy steps, I'm afraid. So you jump up into the cab bit. Now, as you can probably tell, the door and that light are on a sensor, and they're on that one there. So I apologise if this is difficult to get up into on a 4G planet or something. So we step into the cab, and we have the seat there with the ammo controller next to it, and in front of that is the core just there. Like I said, I've put it far forward so that if it gets destroyed, everything else should be safe. Touch wood. So, as we can see, we've got some generators here. Hang on a minute. Oh, I was wrong. I didn't put one of the generators on propulsion, etc. Okay, never mind. So, there are the 5 generators. Obviously, you can see 3, and the other 2 are behind those 2 there. There's the small cargo box. There's the O2 station. There's one of the O2 tanks so that you can access it. I'm sure you can guess that there's a ventilator, there's the fridge, there's the pentactor tank, and there's the ammo locker. No, the armor locker. Close. You can probably also tell there's a light in here, and that's on that sensor. Now, although normally this would lead me on to the shortcuts and signals, it's not going to this time. But here is a holo display for the driver to show them what the device groups and signals toggleables are, and the default buttons for controlling them. Now, as you can probably tell, I have been able to move around in here. It can be difficult on a... Oh, for fuck's sake. So, at least I haven't already uploaded these to the workshop. But those of you who know will know 95% of my tour videos, I will find a missing texture. So that texture there is what I use for the damage texture. In fact, I talked about it. Let's get it out. So I like putting that damage texture because as you take damage, that texture becomes exposed. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. And it looks like it's smouldering metal. That's why I do that. So here's the thing. This is what I do, right? Before I save the vehicle, I check the replace mode and I select the bright, well, it's not very bright, it's a pink colour, and the texture that is light up the whole block. I do that so that it replaces every example of that texture around the vehicle, and then I spend like 10 minutes just going around, checking, and yet still, there's always things like that I don't notice. But still, you know, I haven't actually uploaded these to the workshop yet, so it's fine. I'll fix that in orbit. Right. Yeah. Oh, actually, don't need that because... There we go. So, we'll move round the back and we have access to the 16 KSU cargo container behind the double shutters there. There is 2 of them. Now, obviously, they're on that motion sensor along with that light and that light. Okay. So, the cab of the others are exactly the same as the cab for that one, including the missing pissing texture. So, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Why are they missing? So, I have said in other videos that I swear that Empyrion sometimes just forgets what you've painted certain surfaces. Now, can anyone explain to me how I would have missed that? I've textured all along this block, but not that one. And then all along those, and again not that one. And I've done it on the other side as well. I mean, I suppose it would have been symmetry mode. Yeah, I'm sorry. I would have textured that. I think it's the game. I think sometimes what you paint blocks doesn't get saved properly. Anyway, so we have the same sensor and the same two lights, except instead of the shutters, it controls that ramp. Now, the astute among you might notice that this version and the ambulance actually comes out one block further. That was to give me a little bit more room. So, 12 seats, 6 on each side. We have lights in here as well, controlled by that motion sensor there. There's the O2 station, and there's the 2875 cargo container. I wonder how many missing textures we're going to find on the ambulance. So, the ambulance basically has the same extended rear. I like big butts. And it has the same ramp and the same two lights. Now, the motion sensor that controls these has been moved from there to make way for the medical symbol and has been put there instead. The interior lights are on that sensor. And as you can see, we have two sort of bed things, along with 2 seats for any medics or corpsmen that might be assigned to the vehicle. And we have clone chamber, medic station, the 2 extra fridges, basically the same O2 station and the same cargo container as the transport truck over there, except as I pointed out earlier, that ventilator takes up one of the container extensions away. Is that the right way around? Stuff it, you know what I mean. Right, now let's show you around the other stuff. So there's the 3 additional O2 tanks that this one and the transport truck come with. If we go in, actually I'm going to come here, sorry about that. Right, so underneath the front turrets is actually the extensions for the ammo container. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you that properly, really. There you go, there's some. There's the other generators I was telling you about. Now, we have the O2 tank behind that O2 station, and then behind that is a wall of blocks. In fact, there's more blocks here behind the generators to separate them from the fuel. And again, I have tested it. These don't chain react down to those or across to these on either side. I mean, the fuel tanks don't come up. If you blow up these side ones, get my teeth in. These side ones, if you blow them up, don't chain react to these, is what I'm trying to say. And there's additional O2 tanks. Here is the CPU extenders and the wireless connection, behind which is the shield. And behind that is... oh no, that's the extra ones for the rear cab, isn't it? Yeah, so behind that is the container extensions and the stuff for the cab. Now in the front one it's slightly different. So I'm sure you've guessed by me pointing at them, there are less CPU extenders in the ambulance than in here because it's a lower tier. But there you go, there's... come on, get in there, thank you. Oh yeah, I don't need to change that back. So yeah, behind those is the container extension for this. And I think that's everything. Showed you the wireless, that's it. Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's everything of that segment. Right, so the next segment then is their shortcuts and signals. So the shortcuts and the signals for the logistics truck and the transport truck are in fact the same. So we'll start with the device groups, and as usual the first one is propulsion, etc. And that will of course turn on all of the thrusters and what I was referring to earlier as the default hover engines. That's the 2 at the front and 2 at the back. The next one down, I don't need to go in there, I can just show you. The next one down is max lift. Now that will turn on the other two large hover engines and the small, and the small ones at the front. I should say as well, let's show with this one because I blew up the other one. You may notice that this is pitching forward. Give me a second, I'm just going to run over to the measuring platform and prove that that's just this terrain. I have labelled it as flat-ish, and the important bit of that label is the ish. It's flat-ish. Yeah, so give me a sec. Right, I flew over to my measuring platform to prove that it isn't the vehicle, just in case anyone is thinking it is. Let's do the transport truck because that's heavier at the front than it is at the back. Okay, propulsion on. Now it is pitching forward ever so slightly, but it's not very much. As you can see, it's maybe, I don't know, like a quarter of a degree. And I can prove I'm not pressing the align button, because if I do, that's what happens. That's me tapping it. Yeah. So you can definitely tell when I am, and there it is again, and then I let go. Like I said, it does pitch forward slightly. So this one suffers with it the most. Destroy, because out of the three of them, it's the one that's heaviest at the front when compared to the back. Right, let's go backish to the flattish area over here-ish. Right, that can sit back down. What am I talking about now? Shortcuts. And I've just done max lift, haven't I? Right, so the next one down is tail lights. As usual, I have my red flares on the back. If you don't like them, you can turn them off. And if you hate them, you can multi-tool them off. The next one down, and the last one of the device groups, is ventilator. Now, just in case this is the first tour of mine you've seen, I will go through that real quick. So, if we have a look... Oh, I wonder if the oxygen has been compromised on this one. No, it hasn't. Good. Don't need to leave it on. So, if we have a look at the power left and we turn the oxygen off, it doesn't change. So I've given you a ventilator switch. It turns the ventilators off, and that will save a bit of power. Now, it'll save a bit more power in this one, simply because it's using more for the extra ventilator that has two rather than one. Right, the signals. As usual, the top one is power save. Now, on the power save on these, it will turn off any of the motion sensors and levers there may be. It will also turn off any passenger seats. That one obviously doesn't have any, but this has 12 and that has 2 of them. It will turn them off. It'll also turn off the single holo display and also the Wi-Fi. Now, the fridges are not on the power save. They're left to be controlled manually. And I do that, as I usually say, just so you don't accidentally turn them off when you still have food in them. I think it's best to always control them manually so you don't accidentally ruin your sandwiches. Oh, I should also point out as well, the reason I put the power save on is because of this. Switched off vessels slowly drop or rise to the outside temperature. So if you're carrying these on a vehicle that isn't itself compressed or doesn't have an internal environment, then these vehicles will return to whatever the environment you're in is. So if it's a radiated planet, the interiors will become radiated, and if it's hot, then they'll get hot. So the idea of... Oh, and then when you turn the vehicles on, it takes them a little while to readjust. It takes a while for the ventilators to change it back to what is habitable. So I've given you a power save switch so that if you're parked on something like that, you can basically turn everything off. Oh, apart from the ventilator, obviously. So using the other switches, you can turn everything off. And then the power save turns off what's left. And now in that configuration, it should last quite a long time. Well, ish. So that's... Oh, I don't need to close that. So next one down is Gatling turrets. Now, that'll turn on, obviously, all of the Gatling turrets. Oh, just in case, again, this is the first video of mine you've seen where I do mention this a few times. I call them Gatling turrets rather than minigun turrets because, as far as I know, minigun is a brand of rotary barrel weapon manufactured by General Electric, whereas Gatling is an umbrella term named after the guy who invented it. So that's why I call them that, because, I mean, I don't know much about the lore of the game. It's possible that Elion are saying that General Electrics still operate in 350-ish years' time, and maybe they are the minigun brand of weapon, but I don't think they are. Anyway, so why is that the wrong way around? Okay. Oh, because it's an ambulance. No, yeah, I did swap them around. So this one replaces... Oh, hang on. Let's do these first. So we have headlights, which are the actual spotlight blocks. And then we have floodlights, which are the spotlight mode lights across the top of the cab. Now, for the ambulance, I combined the headlights and the floodlights into one. And, of course, I've given you some emergency beacons. Flashy, flashy. Now, it's possible a couple of you might have seen it. So I have a civilian ambulance, which is a variant of a camper van. And that as well has emergency beacons. And as you can probably tell, there's a lot more on this one than there are on the military ones. And that's simply because, as you can tell by these images, if military ambulances have any lights, they tend to be very few. So I've limited them on that. And while I've got this out, actually, I just want to brag. I've got a rod of Asclepius. I mean, it's not the best rod of Asclepius that you will have ever seen, but because I made it, so it's not going to be very good. But I have a rod of Asclepius. Right. Shortcuts and signals. And I believe that's all of them. Yes, it is. Okay, that's the end of that segment. So the next and last segment then is their CPU and upgrading. Oh, I'm not going to be able to show you that now. Hang on. Let's destroy it. Right, I got a new logistics truck out because obviously I blew stuff off and therefore it's not going to show its exact CPU. Right. The CPU of the logistics truck, it is tier 4. It uses 33,000 and just under 900 out of the 100,000 you are allowed. The transport truck is also tier 4. It's slightly less because it doesn't have as many container extensions. Just under 32,500 out of the 100,000. The ambulance is tier 3. And it comes in at just over 28,500 of the 30,000. Because obviously it has less turrets, less CPU. Now, just in case you're skipping around in... Oh, I left the lights on. There we go. Just in case you're skipping around in the video, I will show you where these are. The core is there. It's in the same place on all of them. And the CPU extenders are in the back of the cab. So the tier 4 vehicles has the 4th CPU extender here. And then the others are behind it there. Maybe in the floor would be the best way to show you-ish. Kind of. Now, The tier 3 extenders are in the same place, and I have left the space open. As for upgrading, there is no upgrade path in any of these vehicles. There is no built-in space really to put anything in. That doesn't mean you can't personalize the vehicle. So, for example, if you don't need 12 seats in the back... if you wanted to, and obviously I couldn't stop you even if I didn't want you to, you could in fact rip out that O2 station, those O2 tanks and all of these seats, and obviously move that controller to the back, fill this entire area with container extensions, and because this vehicle is 1 block longer than that one, even if you filled up to there, it would be a bigger container. You fill this gap in as well, it would be bigger still. If you then took out the lights and that sensor and these block shapages here, you could even fill in this roof area and have an even bigger container. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say personalize. Another thing I might mean when I say personalize, if you accidentally remove that block there that I may or may not have marked, and that block there, and then if the tier 3 CPU extenders, that one there and that one behind that block there, happen to fall out of those holes, and if some tier 4 CPU extenders happen to find their way in and fill up the spaces, and then a whole bunch of turrets happen to find their way back onto the ambulance variant, that's not my fault. And I couldn't stop you if I didn't want you to. But that might be something that might happen, maybe. Right, before I let you go, there is one last thing to show you, and that is the additional primary colours that come in the colour palette. So, as you can probably tell, they all come in this desert sand colour, but included in the palette is this military green and this Arctic white, which I think looks quite good. Oh, hang on. Which I think looks quite good for an ambulance. And also this dark grey are included. Oh, right. Normally, I would also then show you me publishing them to the workshop. But since I need to replace those textures, that one, and those ones, I won't be doing that in this video. So, there we go. I'm going to call that the end of the tour. So, thank you very much for taking an interest in the Wildebeest. Oh, I should say as well that pronunciation may vary from region to region. You may know that as Wildebeest or maybe Wildebeest. But here in England land, we call it Wildebeest. So thank you very much for taking an interest in the Wildebeest military truck. I hope you get some use out of at least one of them. And hopefully I will see you in another video for a different build. So thank you again, and goodbye.